Welcome to Go Sports Live. I'm Matty Marshall. We got a little event recap here. Just watched the last battle go down. A little outside of Philadelphia, the Mid-Atlantic Major is in the books. Big congratulations to Tampa Bay Damage as they took the victory in dramatic fashion with Jacob Edwards winning yet again another one-on-one. That's essentially two in a little over a year to help Tampa Bay Damage win two events in a little over a year. They are definitely one of the best teams in paintball. We have Joey Blute, the coach of the team, here to help us break down their win. We're going to kind of be discussing some of the main storylines here in this event recap. We also have some of our co-hosts, Roy Richard, also in the mix here, Rusty Glaze. We'll see Todd Adamson in the next one that we do. And we'll be bringing you guys some more content, breaking down the brackets, breaking things down as we kind of move forward. A little bit of a break here, this summer break. There's lots of events going on, though, as there's a NXL event going on in England right now. You can catch it on Major League Paintball's YouTube page. Skirmishes this weekend, probably about 5,000 people going to be battling in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. So it's always fun during the summer. But yeah, a little bit of a break. September 15th to the 17th is going to be the next big event. So yeah, if we could just bring in here, we got again Joey Blute, Roy Richard, Rusty Glaze, former coach of San Diego Dynasty, played with Infamous, Excessive. Roy Richard, currently still playing 10-man and winning some tournaments with Cat Factory. Also a former player for Excessive, Avalanche, Infamous, and then Joey Blute, again, just masterful as the man behind the scenes, leading Tampa Bay Damage back to glory. And it's going to be interesting as the race is going to take place here for, Damage is still in the mix for series titles, still two more events to go. So real quick, actually, Joey, let's start out with you, man. I kind of want to dive in a little bit to the win. It was a pretty amazing win, the fact you guys came out of the wild card round. So let's just get a feel real quick for, obviously a little bit of a break, but kind of a redemptive win, because at the last event, you guys got knocked out in the wild card round. And this time you get stuck in the wild card round again and find your way battling out of the wild card round, win four games in a row to get the victory. And again, it comes down to Jacob Edwards. So again, we're going to dial it in. Rusty's going to have some questions for you. Roy will have some questions for you. I will also have some questions for you. But my first question is, you got to be feeling pretty good. But what was it like to get that W after, again, fighting out of the wild card round, two events in a row? You've been stuck down there on Sunday.
It was good. Obviously, winning is what we do it for. There's no reason to be there, or anyone who's at this level who's doing what we're doing at this spot. If you don't win, it's not just losing. It's like heart-wrenching bad. So I mean, it was really good. It was definitely earned. Like, the guys, we played great on Friday. Saturday we had a rough time with it. On the first match against NRG, and then the match against Dynasty, it was a really good match. I mean, Dynasty's a great team. It was a great match. The guys fought hard. That was the one where after that match, I was pretty sure we were going to win that tournament. And I know a lot of people say shit like that, but I truly believed it. It was a hard fought match that we kind of took our foot off the gas a little bit when we should have pushed harder. It happens. It is what it is. At the end of the day, I feel like we were ready after that. Like, that was the test we needed to make sure that we could do what we needed to do to win that tournament. And came out on Sunday, and it was pretty masterful the first three rounds. So we were in control, start to finish, everything except for the last one.
Yeah, so if you look at your prelim performance, you went 2-2. You beat the Bears and beat Level very solidly on day number one. You put up some huge points in the margin, 7-1 and a 7-2 victory. And then you lost to Energy Elite, that kind of out-damaged Damage. That was kind of my first question I want to throw at you, and then I'll let Rusty and Roy have at you for a little bit. And then Joey, want to include you in the conversation for some of these other big stories. Obviously, X Factor making it to the finals. They look renewed. They looked solid. I like that starting five. Actually, it's more like a starting seven. Houston Heat still, in the mix, but it's been a while since they've won a tournament, but they're so consistent. Hurricanes are a story. Impact, New York Extreme. We'll touch on a few things. But, again, you're coming off those first big wins against the Bears and Level, and then you all of a sudden get kind of out-damaged by Energy Elite, who did not have a great event. What was your thoughts going on in that game? Because you guys then went on to lose to Dynasty, like you said, coming off mentally strong after that 1-point loss, and then just beat the brakes off of Revo in the wild card round, beat the Hurricanes by 2, Heat by 1, and then X Factor in the finals. But what was your mindset after that loss to Energy Elite? That's kind of the weird anomaly in the entire tournament almost. with how they played and how
go,
you guys won, and it was strange.
If you go back through and look at our wins over the past, forever, damn near, there's always that one game against that one team that we shouldn't lose to that we do. I can think back to right before I left Damage the first time, the West Coast Open. We lost to Top Gun. I think we're the only team Top Gun ever beat in the pro bracket, but then we went on to win that tournament. It's kind of our thing, right? Like and no disrespect to anybody, but we tend to play down to our competition. So the harder games we get up for, the other games, it's hard for us to get up. And by the time we tried to get up on that game, we were already behind. And I was not going to let it get out of shape on points because I knew margin was going to matter. I knew the Dynasty game was big. We beat them, they go in as the wild card, and we go on as the bracket winners, if not because I kept that margin close. So no matter what, that was going to be a close game. I wasn't going to let it get completely out of hand. We went out and they played better than we did on that particular match. Tip my hat to them, and whatever. You throw me up against them 5 more times, I say we beat them 4, and that's the attitude you have to have.
Rusty,
what
did you see? No, this was against Energy Elite.
The Energy.
Oh, Energy Elite. Oh, okay. I was losing track.
Yeah, because they lost that game.
No, I would say
1-3. Yeah, it was interesting because Energy, and also some news to break. I don't know if it's broken already, but Chris Jansen and Elliot Weaver have parted ways with Energy Elite. Just kind of not seeing eye to eye on the direction of the team overall. That's a huge loss to Energy Elite because Elliot Weaver has become, if not their best player, unarguably one of their best players, and Jensen's done a pretty good job of getting into some Sundays. So they have some work to do in the next couple months. But that one game plan that they were kind of running against you guys did work. I mean, Rusty, do you have any questions for Joey as far as what you were seeing out there? Or, I mean, this is kind of an interesting time period right now for Damage because, coming off a couple second places, a win last year in Texas, picking up Rainey, looking about as good as the team's ever looked now. Now they're in the hunt for the series title. You being, obviously not a stranger to Damage throughout the years. What are your thoughts, and what do you got for Joey?
Yeah, I mean, I understand like your position. It's annoying to go out and like win your first 2 games, then you're playing Energy Elite, team you should beat, and then you lose to them. And I mean, as a coach, you're just like, come on, guys. Like the players like start to get into like, we assume we're just going to win the game because it's Energy Elite. We look at how they did in their previous games, and then you're just not. You lose the edge. You're just not there. You're not sharp. You're not shooting on the break the same way. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, wait a second. Why are these guys up in the match? And then you're trying to like Joey said, you're trying to get back into it. But like, you can't, it's annoying as a coach because you're like, dudes, you can't think like this. Like you just got to go and execute the game plan no matter who you're playing. So I understand that could be frustrating. Then you go into Dynasty and it's like, hey, this is, being where they're at like these days, this is a top team. Let's buckle up. This is a good chance to what it's going to be like on Sunday. And then you have a really good game out of it. It goes to overtime, which is always a 50-50. They get a good break, whatever. You get to overtime with a good team like that, you've played a great game. But then you're like facing the position, okay, we won our first 2 Friday games. We shit the bed on Saturday. That could be either really good team meetings to where you like fix everything or really bad team meetings to where it's like the train just comes off the track. So that's credit to you putting together a good meeting and saying, here's all the pieces that we came out with that were good that I saw in the match. Here's what we're going to use on Sunday and make those adjustments. So, that's credit there to manage that, all the emotions, I always say like when you win, you always eat better at night. When you lose, it's always like crap meals and angry meetings, but sometimes you get a lot out of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was one of those. It was definitely one of those meetings where when we had the meeting on Saturday going into Sunday, it was more of a, what did we do on Friday that was so right? What did we do on Saturday that was so wrong? The good thing is because the Dynasty match was a very good match that could have gone either way based off of ref calls, one ball bouncing off of somebody. There were so many things that were so close. That was such a tight match that we were able to take what we did in that match, fix a little bit of what we did on the NRG match, a little bit what we did on that match, and take that into Sunday. And I think if you don't have the test of adversity like that, it's harder to win. So I almost feel like having something that tests you gives you the opportunity to go into Sunday with the mentality of we can be beaten, But if we played our potential, nobody's touching us. And I think that's what we were able to take out of Saturday sucking to be able to do good on Sunday.
What do you think, Roy?
Yeah. Well, I have kind of two questions. The first one was about the team meeting on Saturday night, right? Like, I think, facing adversity during the prelims helps, set the team in the right direction as long as the guys have the mental fortitude to correct, right? And clearly there's a lot of guys on damage that obviously do. And so I wanted to kind of ask you, who's, when you're having a team meeting on Saturday night after losing 2 matches, who in that room besides yourself is kind of stepping up and having those constructive leadership conversations with the rest of the guys?
So on our squad, it's a little bit different than a lot of other squads because I have guys that I have 3 guys that are low on experience. Everyone else on my squad has 15, 20 years of playing pro and winning at the pro level. So it's not quite like other teams where one guy stepping up and taking charge. We actually do something a little different where we get our little huddle or wherever we're at, and I say what I need to say, and then I just go around, and everyone has to give at least 1 or 2 things that they saw that they could be better at, that they could change, that they would like to see changed, something that maybe somebody else didn't notice, right, that I didn't already bring up. And we go around the room and we do that. I save the series veteran guys like the Rainies and the Jasons and the Jacobs and the Keys towards the end of the conversation because those guys are going to have stuff that they can dig out that might be missed by the other guys. But we try not to, honestly, man, I try not to overdo it. I think a lot of these guys go into these team meetings and have 3, 4, 5-hour team meetings, and they just go over the same shit so much that it just runs these guys into the ground where it just let's be honest, dude, like, we're paintball players. Like we're not rocket scientists. And if you try to turn this into more than what it is, it just becomes a giant clusterfuck. So we try to keep it simple. Just cover the bases, cover the stuff that we know we can fix. That's basic stuff. And then you have to go out and perform. And that's the bottom line, right? Like the guys have to show up and they have to perform.
Rusty, Let me throw that back to you because, because Roy, I think that's a great question. Who does step up into meetings? There's a lot of dudes that watch these shows that are divisional players that want to know the secrets to the win. And Rusty, you've sat in a ton of meetings. I couldn't agree more. I just want to reiterate the fact that a 3 or 5 hour long meeting can be, ultimately counterproductive because you're going to get a lot of dudes that tune out. Obviously the 4 of us have all been in a lot of these meetings over the years. Rusty, you did help guide Dynasty to some wins, having to deal with some alpha dudes that are very, experienced, just like Joey has to deal with. He's got a lot of alphas on that team, got a lot of guys with, decades of experience, some of them, and, they deserve to be listened to. How do you deal with that? I mean, there may be some guys out there that are kind of wondering, okay, well, how do I run a team meeting? What if I'm sitting in the team meeting as a leader? What do I do? If I'm one of the boot rookies, what do I do? Should I contribute? Should I not? If you are a kind of a sergeant or a lieutenant within the framework of the the team structure, what do you do? If you're the leader, if you're the coach, there's probably some coaches that are watching like, all right, well, I need to figure this out because Damage did something right. Because again, you guys went 2 wins and then 2 losses. And then I kind of would like to, after we get done with this little part of the mini conversation here, talk about some of the teams you beat, because these teams all have kind of implications in the pro league as we work our way through your Sunday here, Joey. But yeah, Rusty. Oh, wait, hold on, Roy. You got something real quick?
Yeah, just the second part of that question. I'm sure everyone wants to know this. Who would you have sent out as the number 2 in the one-on-ones if time had expired on that first set?
So
that's
a good question.
The way I actually do the one-on-ones is a little bit different, right? So we play a lot of one-on-ones at practice. I'm confident we do more one-on-ones than anyone else in paintball on the pro level, at least for practices. I tier it out, right? So my best 2 one-on-one guys, guaranteed, and Rusty's coached against me and with me and against me and seen us do it. I'm sure he could agree with this, is Jacob and Brian Smith. Those are 2 of the best one-on-one paintball players in paintball. After that, you got Keith. But quite honestly, like not to sound just overly confident and cocky, if they wanted to go through all 10 guys, I'd have gone through all 10 guys. And I'm confident I would have won the majority of those one-on-ones. I would have put Chris out against one of their better players, and I bet you Chris would have beaten him because my guys grind against each other. I mean, we did the one-on-one tournament before the event, same as everyone else did. And honestly, Jacob did not do great. When we played ourselves on one-on-ones, he won like maybe 2. So, yeah. I mean, like he was getting smashed out. Chris was smashing him out. So, honestly, it would have been going through the list. It would have been Jacob, and then I would have run Keith, and then I would have run Brian. And the reason why I would have put Keith out before Brian at this particular one is because Keith was on fire, and Keith's snapshot is stupidly nasty. And God help anyone who tries to get in a gun battle with him when he's on.
Well, it almost, but you didn't seem to hesitate. If we could just real quick, just dwell on the, before we go into the meeting thing you want, that I would like for you to break down, Rusty, from your perspective, before we move on to some of these other big stories, is that you didn't seem to have, I would literally just rewatch the game today again, the finals game. There was almost, there didn't seem to be any question at all that it was going to be Jacob, even with his flaws and the chinks in his armor in practice. I mean, it, you know, and maybe if you could, because there's a, if you rewatch the game, anyone that hasn't seen it yet, it's a great game. I mean, it was an amazing paintball game. Damage goes up by 2, and then X Factor 3 unanswered. Damage has to tie at the very end just to even take it to overtime. They battle through overtime, even though X Factor was up a body. And then, but then there's a moment where we cut to the pits right at the end of that point, and our cameraman is right there. And if you could just tell us what you said to Jacob, because I couldn't quite tell. I was trying to figure it out. It seemed like, are you good? Are you good to go? He takes a big sip of water. He's like, yeah, I'm good. But it didn't seem like you had any question it was going to be Jacob.
So as he was walking off the field, I said, Jake, you want to win another tournament? He said, yeah. I said, cool. So I said, load him up as he's walking off. I turned him and I go, you good? He said, yeah. And they were trying to put 5 pods on his back. He goes, I won't need more than this hopper to beat this kid. And then he walked out there. So Jacob is like, confidence wise, like there's nobody in paintball that has more confidence in Jacob than Jacob. And I'm probably a close second. Line him up. I'll put Jacob out there against anyone in paintball, and he'll win the majority of those games. I mean, can he lose? Of course he could. But in those high pressure situations, you got to have such dog in you. You have to be like, I mean, honestly, you have to be somewhat a little bit of a psychopath, because it's not just a one-on-one. It's a one-on-one to win the tournament. Right. So you have to have a little bit of this edge that this is the kind of guy that if you got in a fight with, he would die for you. Right. Like, and there's not a lot of people that would actually do that, where Jacob's the kind of dude, like he's got the dog in him, and he's got that next level that you just have to be that guy. I think I have 4 guys that are at that point where they would die. They would literally die to do it. And he's just one of those guys. So if he says, yes, I'm ready, yes, I want it, yes, I'm going to win this tournament, I mean, he believes it more than I do at that point. So God bless. Go out there and get it, kid. And honestly, I thought, real talk, I thought Tom came out and they were just going to sit Jake out. I really did. Like, I already had gone to Keith and said, hey, be ready. I don't think Tom's going to get into a snap shooting battle with Jake. No disrespect to Tom. I think he's a great paintball player, but he'd only played 2 of the 6 points, 7 points in the finals. So he was cold. You know, like he's not coming in hot. Like if they would have put TJ out there or Meter or Colt, I'd have been like, cool, this is going to be a fight. But when they put him out there, I was like, Ryan's a pretty smart dude. Maybe he's just trying to kill the clock on us to get my second guy out, which I'm game for that too. But I honestly didn't think that Tom was going out there to battle, only because he had only played 2 points in the finals.
Well, Joey, let me ask you this question. And Rusty, I do want to get to the meeting thing, because I feel like that's some good input for the divisional players that are going to watch the show. But this is such a big part of the win that just happened, because we don't really get to see a lot of one-on-ones. They happen very rarely. And so when they do happen, it is a pretty big story. And then the fact that Jacob has won both. So they put out Tom Guest. And Joey, do you have any insight? Obviously we have input. I have input too, but I just, what was the, what do you think Ryan's mindset was putting Tom out? Because he has Meter Ninos, who's won a one-on-one tournament on his roster. He has Cody Minkowski, who's won a one-on-one tournament on his roster. Colt Roberts, who's pretty damn good at one-on-ones. And then TJ Danner, who's done a lot of that very recently since he got back 100% healthy. TJ wins a lot of points in those types of situations. He's won, I want to say, it's got to be 3 or 4 in the past 12 to 18 months, maybe more for them in that situation. I'd say maybe 12 months. He's probably won 3 or 4 one-on-ones to help win him a game. or win him a point. So, what do you think that Ryan's methodology was and mindset putting Tom Guest out again? And Tom is a monster gunfighter. He's like 6'3", he can play a lot of different, can get angles that other people can't get. But what do you think that it was?
So mindset at the time, I honestly thought he was going out there to sit Jake out. And the reason why I say that is because in jest, Ryan and I were walking and talking, and we literally said, let's just skip the whole entire thing. Let's just go to one-on-ones. And he said, fine, as long as I get to use TJ Danner for all my one-on-ones. Best 3 out of 5. And I said, sure. So I don't know if that was gamesmanship on his part or whatever, but at that point, okay, cool. He thinks TJ Danner's his best one-on-one, right? Because why would he say that otherwise? So when Tom came out, I really thought it was just to kill the clock. Again, can Tom win a one-on-one? Of course he can. No one's at that level playing that late on Sunday if they're not a good paintball player. So I know he's a good paintball player. I just didn't think that would be their choice, which is why I thought they're definitely going out to stall the time to get Jake off the field to see who I put out next, which I was okay with. It was just more of when he started playing and started snapping with Jake and trying to control Jake, I was just like, oh shit, this is real. This is going to happen. So yeah, I mean, as far as why he did what he did, I don't want to speculate on that. You're going to have to ask him that and have him give you it. I'm not going to put that out there because I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we'll get Ryan Brand on and talk to him about it. I mean, Rusty, before we get into it's just like the one-on-one thing is that was such a big story here at this last event. Do you have any insight into why you think that Ryan put out Tom Guest? And again, I'm not trying to beat up on Tom. He's a great paintball player. You don't get on one of these top teams if you're not. But when you have 2 one-on-one champs on your roster, and that doesn't even count TJ, who's, also the kind of the hot hand. But a lot of times, like Joey, you said that you have your one-on-one competitions that happen in practice, and then you got to, maybe ride that hot hand. So I'm guessing maybe Tom was murdering people in one-on-ones in their practice sessions, and that he felt that was the hot hand in the one-on-one situation. What do you think, Rusty?
I mean, I got a lot of thoughts when I watched it. I did an entire masterclass on BKI on how to win one-on-ones. I think Tom approached it poorly. So one thing you have to know right away, Jacob, what side of the field did he play in the tournament? Played the Dorito side. He's going to go to the Dorito side. That's what most people do in a breakout one-on-one, not in an in-game one-on-one, in a breakout one-on-one. And he's going right-handed. He's going to the Dorito side. I thought Tom's approach was poor because he didn't seem like he knew that was going to happen. And he didn't look to control the entire situation. Like when he got shot, he was like head poking without his gun even sort of coming over this way and got shot. Like he wasn't in control of the situation at all. If I'm going out to play a one-on-one from the breakout and I can control the amount of paint I'm bringing, I'm loading up and I'm balls in the air. I'm putting as many balls in the air at the other guy and dominating him and making him pop out from positions to try and hit me. That wasn't his approach. He seemed more like Joey's saying. He was playing sneaky, playing hider. That's just a horrible approach to a one-on-one. Breakout one-on-one, I'm trying to shoot him on the break. He was going to go right-handed. I'm going to shoot back right away, knowing he's going to go that side. Maybe I do a cross shot or something, but I just don't think he came into it like he was going to win it, and he didn't play it like he was going to win it. Like he wasn't dominating that. And Jacob's doing what he was doing during the tournament, going down that side, getting the Doritos, take some shots, and he ended up shooting Tom out. I thought it was just poorly played on Tom's behalf for sure.
I definitely agree. I mean, I just watched it right before we went live, and he went, so they both started out. Tom tries to go heavy guns up. Jacob kind of lets him shoot a little bit, waits, and then dips out to the D side. He was the proactive, more aggressive player. Looks like we lost Roy. Hopefully we can get Roy back. But then also so Tom makes the move to the Aztec, and then he is a little unsure, it seems like, of where Jacob is. So he's playing very tight on the bunker. And anyone knows that if you're going to play a one-on-one, you want to play that bunker. You don't want to let that bunker play you. So the fact that he was so close to that spot instead of backed up off of it told me a couple things. One, that he didn't know exactly where Jake was once Jake launched up the D side, but he should know that he's protected from that snake side angle, so he could back up off that spot a little bit. You're a tall dude, man. Like, you don't need to be that close to that spot. Whereas, you're flipping your bunker around like you're going to get pinched out from an angle. He's going right-handed. He dipped out to that D side. So now back up off that spot a little bit. And then now you have a couple decisions. Like you said, do you go gun dominant heavy, and then try to catch him in between his moves if you feel like your guy's being a little bit more proactive. But I didn't like how close he was to that bunker. I agree with you. It's okay. You gotta kind of, hey, he's been playing the D side. He's right-handed dude. More than likely, which way is he going to go? Well, that's the way he definitely went. But yeah, man, I mean, Jake just went right up that D side, made the proactive moves. And then once they actually got locked in a gunfight, Tom did try to go gun dominant over the top. And Jake kind of felt the pressure, read it really well, and then made that really nice shot on him. So, you know, it was another impressive one-on-one performance. I mean, again, Tom is no slouch. He's a really good paintball player. You don't get on these top teams unless you're really good. But I
feel like he rushed when he noticed Jacob was in the Dorito briefly. It was a very tight window that before he got shot, but he engaged so quickly. Whereas like, what's Jacob's next move? Okay, drop and watch the next Dorito zone and know if he moves forward or back. But you don't have to instantly engage. Just make sure you know where he's at. He didn't go forward. Okay, he's in this Dorito or beyond. Now I can try and set up a good shot or try and get post control again. But he seemed like he just was so worried about him moving that he just like popped in 3 different spots and then just got shot. So it's going to be, you know, hopefully he reviews that, and he should watch my masterclass on one-on-ones. He would learn a lot. No offense. I like Tom. I spent time in Canada and everything, but you know.
Hey, Rusty, your role on this show, it seems like, and in general right now, is to just call dudes out, and then they're all going to be way better afterwards, because everyone that you're like, hey, this dude needs to step up, or these dudes need to do that. Apparently,
he's going to be knocking on. Rusty, he's going to be.
Yeah,
he's going to be knocking on my door, giving my doorbell. Come outside.
Yeah, Rusty's going to be exactly. Hey, is Rusty in there? I don't care about his kids. We need to have a fight in the front yard. No, but Rusty's taking Venmo requests here, and he will call you out here live. And you'll probably play better at the next event, because that's just kind of how it's like. Joey, that's your coaching style. You're like, Jake, you're fat. Jason, you're also fat. I need you both to lose 20 pounds immediately. Keith, your cardio, you're a jack monster. Please don't take your shirt off. You're going to embarrass the rest of us, but you can't seem to play more than 3 points in a row. You know, and you just go like, you're just absolutely savage with those dudes, and they just don't want to get yelled at you, or they don't want to get yelled at by you, I've literally heard that multiple times from those dudes. They're like, yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to get yelled at by Joey right now, bro. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to try to go and run some miles, because really don't want to have to hear that. So, I mean, maybe we're trying to get Roy back. Apparently Roy lost all power to his house. I don't know if there's some crazy storm going through North Carolina right now, but we got Florida with Joey Blute, Arizona with Rusty Glaze, even though he's a Cali resident from back in the day. And then Roy, Cali guy, but also moved out to North Carolina. I don't know what the hell's going on over there. But yeah, so, Joey, maybe... Sorry, go ahead, Rusty.
Do you want to touch on the meeting stuff real quick?
Yeah, let's touch on that. And then I do want to kind of talk to Joey a little bit about his mentality and coaching these dudes. But then I do want to start, because we don't have all day. So I definitely want to move into some of these other stories. Obviously, the three of us, even without Roy, could spend 5 hours talking about all these crazy stories in pro paintball. But there are some emerging stories that I think people should remember as we kind of head into the rest of the year, 2 events to go. But yeah, so touch on the meeting situation, Rusty. I mean, how do you kind of go about that to try to keep all these alphas in line, but make sure that people hear, get their say in, and, maybe try to get some stuff from guys that don't want to talk as much? How do you manage that?
I think the important part is, like Joey said, let people speak and be heard. Like, that's an important part. That's sort of the like warm up, like in the meeting, you're going through some things. If you're watching film, you can kind of go through some of that. But like, basically this is what I boiled down to a good meeting. You look at the data, where did they go? And then you go, how can we capitalize on where they went? That's like, you're planning on, like, if we shoot heavy this way or we shoot heavy that way, or, you're looking at what their breakouts were, and you're thinking, how can we take advantage of that? Then you got to look at yourselves. Where did we go? How do we need to adjust that? Like, if we've gone to the snake on the break 10 times in a row, like, obviously they're going to notice that, right? So where'd we go? How can we adjust? And then you're just trying to figure out, where did they win or lose their points? So like, if you have a team and it's like, you got Mouse on the team, he's going to the snake and he's going down and shooting 3 people a game on average, that's something you would say, okay, that's something we have to address. That's how they're winning their points. So now after that, you went through all those sort of scenarios. adjust your plays. And that's it. If you did that, you had a great meeting. If you get through those 5 things, you came out with a pretty good thing. Then you're setting the mindset and you're going through all the little things like that. But if you've achieved those things, that's a pretty good meeting. Then you came out with,
but
like,
how do you
sort of, and you're doing it as a group.
Well, let me ask you this question, and Joey, I want your input on this as well too. How do you steer it back? Because again, I'm not saying you can't have or need, maybe sometimes need to have, because maybe AC Diesel at some point in the past couple months needed to have a 3-hour-long meeting, because sometimes things need to get discussed, things need to get aired out. But how do you rein it back in if it's getting into the weeds? If you're having a 35-minute long, 40-minute long conversation about one little angle, how do you decide, all right, well, we've heard enough. We have enough of the variables. We need to move on because we have X, Y, and Z still to cover.
I think the way that you get caught in the weeds is avoiding things you don't want to talk about. And I always, like in my class, I did effective meetings. I said, kill the elephants right away. So if this guy and this guy are butting heads, or this guy made a huge mistake, and just start with those. Then from there, you've got the truth out. Everyone's not like, yeah, everything you're saying is true, but if that guy didn't get 2 majors, then we'd be good, or whatever. So you get those things out of the way. Then I feel like you don't get caught in the weeds as much, because no one has any sort of back burning desire to like bring up something later in the meeting. You kind of already went over that. That's my approach, at least.
The other side of that too is that if somebody actually wants to get in an argument about something and actually ride that into the sunset and make that a big deal and turn that into a thing, that those people, you're not going to win anyways. Like, let's just be honest. Like, at this point, when you get to that level, and you're, especially at our level, like at this point, you have to know as a player, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, like, just to keep it basic. So there's certain things that are worth fighting for, and certain things you just need to shut the fuck up and move on from. So a guy getting a penalty is a guy getting a penalty. Beyond that, like, there's no reason for you to push forward. That guy knows he fucked up. And I make sure that if somebody does make a mistake, the way I start the whole meeting is, we can't get penalties. You know, I don't want to point people out, but Keith getting a minor here, that was a big deal. Keith, you getting a major on this one, that was a big deal. It shouldn't have been a major. If you go back and watch it, you don't shoot Archie. Archie shoots Rainey, and then they throw a major on Keith. Should have been a minor, but you didn't need to spin and shoot, right? Like, these are things that I actually call them out on. So there's nobody else that's going to call them out, because I've already done it. I've already gone out there and put all the bullshit on the table. So when it's time for them to talk, they have nothing to say, because what are they going to say that I didn't? I already came out and said, you fucked up, and you fucked up. Now let's figure out how we can be better. You guys can't make these mistakes again. So I think it has, honestly, I think the best team meetings and the best teams right now have the best alphas running the teams. The guys who can tell everyone to shut up and let's move on.
Yeah, no, I think that's a huge point, because, dude, and hey, everyone take notes on this, because if you take what Rusty and Joey just said, kill the elephants, and then the leaders lead. If you're a leader, what are you doing? You're dictating the pace of the conversation. It's the same thing as the tempo of a point. What happens? Okay, well, what's the most dominant? Did we get our guys out wide? Do we have somebody in the snake? What is dictating the pace of that specific point, right? So if you're a leader, you have to be the one dictating what we're discussing. That's the whole point. You have your job, So if you kill the elephant by discussing right out the gate, all right, well, like you said, Joey, all right, Keith, you got these penalties you should not have gotten. Maybe one of them was not deserved, but you did spin and you ended up, the way it looked live in a bang situation. Well, that's going to happen. Okay, cool. Let's move on. So now if somebody's got a bone to pick with Keith, and I don't mean to pick on you, Keith, but I'm just saying, like in this example, then yeah, what are they going to say? They're just going to be reiterating the same thing you already said, which is counterproductive. And then now we kind of get that out of the way. So I think that's great, man. That's exactly how things need to go down. Because if not, it simmers.
The same note,
and then it gets more condensed.
What I do is by me calling it out and putting it out there, and then also saying, yes, Keith, you shouldn't have got a major. You should have got a minor. Keith doesn't have shit to say about it. He knows he spun. Yeah. He's a smart player. He knows he made a mistake. but he also knows he didn't shoot the guy and he shouldn't have got a major. So instead of Keith going, yeah, I shouldn't have got a penalty, but shouldn't have been a major, I already took care of that. Like, I basically get it all out up front. So there's nothing else he can possibly say or anyone else could possibly say. So I think that's one of the biggest things that a lot of the divisional teams need to take into consideration. And also, stop blaming the fucking penalties and the refs for all of your problems. Like, if you lose by 1 point and you lost three other points, it's not the refs' fault. Don't lose the other 3 points. Don't lose the other 3 points. Concentrate on what you can control. You can't control the refs. Are there going to be bad calls? Yes, 100%. Humans are judging humans. There's always going to be problems. But don't blame them for your loss. That's not why you lost. Fix the shit you can fix. The other 2 points you lost, why did you lose those? The refs didn't make bad calls on those. Oh, you got shot on the break. Why'd you get shot on the break? Oh, because you were playing the blind spot like an idiot when I told you not to. Like, fix the shit you can fix. And I think that's a big issue a lot of people have is they want to, oh, if the ref didn't make that call, we wouldn't have lost. Bro, it was 3-3. So let's take that 1 point and say you win that 1 point, right? You still have 2 other points you lost. Fix those. If you can fix those other 2 points, then it's not an issue at the next event.
Okay, dude, absolutely. I mean, those are, guys, if you're out there listening, girls, if you're listening, these are massive moments of a lesson to learn, because Jesus Christ, it does not get any more perfect than that. That is how things need to go down. After having been in so many meetings over the years, yes, address kill the elephants, have the leaders lead and be direct, bring up the things that need to be discussed. The leaders need to take it on the chin and bring up the things that need to be discussed and criticize the people need to be criticized. Not that other people can't do that, but it needs to be already out there in the air, because now we can actually get to the most important stuff. Because pointing fingers is not discussing variables, because things get super subjective unless you can pull up the tape. So we need to get to the objective measures of greatness that we are trying to achieve. And like you said, Joey, fix the things you can actually fix. I do want to kind of bring this, and let's just start by bring the conversation to some of these other stories that are happening here, Joey and Rusty in the top levels of the pro league right now. I mean, we got 2 more events to go in a hyper competitive league kind of at the top. And then Joey, if you look at who you guys beat on Sunday, again, coming out of the wild card round, you guys had to win 4 events in a row. Your first win was against Revo, and it was an absolute destruction of Revo. You guys beat up on Revo. Let's discuss Revo a little bit, because Tom Ford has come in. He's trying to throw some money around. He wants to build a winning paintball team. And they've had some struggles. They did make, finally made a Sunday after 2 15th places in a row, but they barely made that Sunday. They lost their first 2 games to the top teams in their division, in Impact and New York Extreme. They kept them close enough that after, almost completely obliterating the Saints scored 1 point on them, 6-1 win. And then they beat Aftermath by 3. It was enough to skate into the wild card round. And then you guys beat them up. So Joey, we'll start with you. What do you think Revo needs to do right now? A 15th, and then now, obviously they're improving, but they don't seem to have the firepower to compete this year. What do you think Tom needs to do?
I think every team needs to be top-down built. I think they started the year without really having a coach. I think they are starting. I think Zach's dad, I believe, the one who used to coach NRG, I believe he's coaching them now or helping coach them. So they have a little bit more of a system, and it's not just players running players. Because if you let the crazies run the asylum, it's just going to be a big crazy fest, right? You have to have somebody who's going to steer the crazies to do their jobs. So I think that's part of it, and they need more depth. Like, they ran the same 5-6 guys, and against us, they ran the same 5 guys. We scouted the shit out of them. We knew everywhere they were going to go. We knew all of their audibles. We knew based off how they lined up where they were going to go. I mean, they were an easy scout team, and that's just because they didn't have the depth. They didn't have the ability to run anyone else anywhere else. They didn't try anything else. I mean, they had on the Dorito side, they had 2 moves they were doing, and we basically let them have one of them so we could shoot a different guy, because we knew he wasn't going to go further than the corner on the break. He was going to go either to the can or the corner, and we're okay. You can have the corner. We'll take the inside shot and try to shoot your snake guy, because if we shoot your snake guy and we get to the snake, you're going to lose.
Rusty, what do you think?
I mean, big picture, I mean, they're way off. If you look at all Dynasty, Damage, Impact, Heat, those teams they don't just have 1 or 2 guys. They got 8 good guys, really good guys. tons of experience, top level player guys. So if one guy's not having a good tournament, one comes in. I mean, you got to be built top down. They don't even have 5 guys that can compete with any of those teams. So I guess that's where you got to go. Is you got to get some. You either got to start with a program like the Russian Legion where you're developing at a higher pace, but like you're not gonna catch anyone on the same weekends of practice as the other teams that are already way better than you. But there's no science in that. So either you get a guy who's built and you pay him to play for you, and he attracts other guys. Maybe you need 2 or 3 of those guys, and then they attract more guys the following year. You build off that. But unless you just take over another team, that's reality. That's all sports. That's not just paintball. That's every sport.
Well, no, that's a good point, because again, we're trying to have real conversations here, and I kind of wanted to track through. We will discuss some of these other teams. You talked about Heat, obviously X Factor. We got to talk about them, Hurricanes. But one of the big conversations, just because the way you just described that, Rusty, that we might as well bring in, to the mix right now in the conversation is AC Diesel. Because, if you look at Mark Johnson and his mentality and what he said about what he wants to do with that squad, he's like, I got a 3-year plan. He knows it's going to take some time. Now, the reason he made the moves that he made with the money he has is that he had these opportunities to get these guys. And so he rebooted up his squad with a ton of, so he did what is required in the sense that he got the talent needed to contend at a high level, and they still struggled. A 12th, a 13th. Now they bring in Mike Hinman as the coach. Joey, I'll get to you in a second. Hold on a second.
I was going to say that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
The Mike Hinman part, it's no different than the Rebel. Yeah. You don't have the leader.
But again, you start from the top, right? Okay, so, but they had, it's not like they didn't have a coach. They had Greg Pauly, and, it's not like they didn't have a coach. But bringing a guy like Mike in that's kind of like a Joey, no one wants to get yelled at by Joey. No one wants to get called out by Mike. It's like when I talked to Mike at the event, and he's like, oh, Matty, what do you think, dude? Me coming in. And I was like, and, RIP, rest in peace. But Mike's dad is no longer with us. He has some friends that are no longer with us. And I said, Mike, if your dad was standing around here right now, how much better would you play? Knowing that you have that harsh, critical mindset in your ear, like how much better would you play? I mean, that's like what when you got a Mouse and some of these other guys that even if they haven't played under Mike, they know what, and he's gotten a lot, softer, quote unquote, in his old age, having a bunch of kids and having lived life a long time. So he is not as ruthless as a coach as he used to be, but still just having him around, he's not going to hold his tongue. If you mess up, he's going to let you know, and he's going to verbally berate you. And no one likes that. And so it's just, and he was like, yeah, 100%. I play way better. I'm like, yeah, dude, just having you around, like not even doing the X and the O's. It's like there's different levels to this. And so I think that was huge. But the fact that, when we take it back to the road, Tom Ford's got a lot of money. Mark Johnson got money, obviously. So these guys are playing with the big boys that also have a lot of money, but that just having the money is only part of it. Sorry. So Joe, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it's like that you have the money, you have the leadership, you have the talent, you have all these different things. You're in that situation too. You guys have money. CJ Botsalis, God bless CJ Botsalis. I love the paintball patrons that love this. He loves the game. He wants to have a competitive team. I remember talking to CJ a couple years ago in the pits in practice, and that dude was fired up. He was like, Matty, damages. This is before, and he kind of called a shot. He was like, this is before you guys won. This is a 2021 World Cup. And he was just like, damage is not going to suck. I will do anything I need to do to put a winning team out there. I don't give a shit if I don't give it. And he's like, he's saying this with the dudes in the pit, like people can hear him. It's not like he's like, we're off in the corner and he's whispering this in my ear. No, he's saying this in front of all of his guys. He's like, I love all these guys, but I'm going to bring in anyone that I have to bring in order to get this done. We are going to win again. It's going to happen. He was adamant about it. You can see in somebody's eyes when they're having that conversation with you. And that was where he was at. And so, you're in the same role. You got the money. You are a great leader. Obviously, the results speak for themselves. You have great talent. It's just really difficult because you guys did go a long time without a win. Now you're back at the top again. But anyway, just kind of talk to me about that magical mixture of like money, leadership, and talent, because that's what's happening with Diesel right now. Revo has, obviously, they have money. Tom Ford's got some money. He wants to pay dudes, so, and there's a lot of people, Impact, Heat, there's a lot of people in this mix right now.
So as far as the team structure thing goes, and I know Rusty will agree with me on this, like as far as a coach manager type person, you have to have 100% control of everything as far as what happens on the field. Obviously, the off the field pickups and stuff like that, the owners, the money guy, they obviously get a say in it, but it still has to be stuff that you sign off on. Like if CJ would have come through and said, "Hey, I want to go out and pick up Ryan Greenspan," I would have said, "Ryan's not going to be a good fit for us. We already have people playing that position. I don't think that's a good move." He would say, "Okay, cool. Who do you want to get?" Right, and that's how we would start that conversation. So I think it's the owner needs to know how to own, the manager needs to know how to manage, and the coach needs to know how to coach, or the coach manager needs to know how to coach and manage. So I think a lot of these guys are good at certain parts of the job, but they're not good at the whole job. I honestly think top level coaches, there's like 6 of us total. And that's not a disrespect to the other coaches. They're all trying, but they don't have the experience, the time, the effort. They haven't put it in from playing at the highest level to coaching at the highest level to managing these teams. And because of that, they may be good at certain parts of it. They may be really great at the X and O's, but they're horrible with dealing with the personalities. They may be great with the guys that they have, but they don't know how to see talent for future. They don't know how to see the guys that are coming up, or they don't know how to pick the right guys that fit their mold. And I think that's something like Mike Hinman is really good at, and he's proven it over the years. So I think them bringing Mike in is why Diesel's going to be great. And I told Mike when I talked to him about it, because he hit me up beforehand. Mike and I are pretty good friends. He hit me up beforehand. He said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Dude, you're going to look like God's gift of coaching after this, because you have all the pieces. They just don't have the guy who can put the pieces together to make it the right size and the right shape." So I said, "You're going to look like a superstar because you have all the pieces. They're just not being put together right." And that's no disrespect to anyone else. It's just he's really good at that, and there's not very many of us that are.
What do you think, Rusty?
Yeah, I think I said it in the last show. I said it's all upside for Mike. He just comes in, and we all knew they were going to do better. I mean, that was just bound to happen, and obviously he gives them a boost. But like Joey said, I think it's a reboot of the Latin Saints, and I don't think they built it properly. Like when you have too many snake guys, it's like, okay, who's going to go play the D side? Well, I'm on the bench behind this snake player. Like, I guess I'll go over there. It wasn't like a, like Joey said, do we need this guy? Well, we have 2 snake guys already. Where's that fit? Because they have BJ, they have Mouse, they have Kyle, Shane Howe. Is he still with them?
Yep.
So that's 4 snake guys,
now,
right?
Yeah.
So that's 4 snake guys right there. And that's of 10 guys, that's 40% snake guys, right? You only need 20%. So like you're going through each position. We have 3 A-chip players in the snake. We have 1 A-chip player is snake 2. Like maybe we should have had someone back him up rather than having an extra snake guy. You know what I mean? So I think, obviously Mike in the longer term will sort that out, but eventually you're going to be overpaying for someone that essentially is not getting much play time. Then you got to sort that back out and relook at positions.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why. Like if Mark's trying to build, he's trying to stack up. If you got the money to do it, and you want to throw money at dudes, and dudes are willing to take it. Obviously, everyone loves Mark, and so he's a good guy to play for because he's still really, really good at his age, and he really loves this game. But yeah, it's like if you look at that D side. Sorry, go ahead.
The best team, like when I look at team balance, I remember when Impact had like Mouse and they had Keith. Didn't matter who went on. Then they had Zach and Rainey. Didn't matter who went on. Like you went across the board on the other side, it was like JC and Brandon Cornell. No matter J-Rab,
Yep.
like no matter what direction you went and what flavor you picked, it didn't matter what 5 were coming on. Like that is a well-built team.
But it's so 100%.
They're all
that's the mix, right? So it's difficult because it's like, all right, look at J-Rab, right? I mean, J-Rab is one of the best ever to play the game, and he played better at this last event than he did at the first couple. But it's like to get everyone hitting at that level and the right mix of their careers and mindset, because there's so many different things that come into it. Like paintball is hard, dude. It's really hard to go out there. It's kind of like baseball. I've used this metaphor so many times because it's so true. If you are a Major League Baseball player and you can do the thing you do well with a bat in your hand 3 times out of 10, 3 times, just 3 times, all you need to do is get a hit 3 times out of 10, you're going to be in the Hall of Fame. That's how hard baseball is. That's how hard it is to hit a major league, well-pitched baseball. So, paintball, it's a little bit different because you need to do it well better than 50% of the time. But it's hard to get all those things, mixing at the same time. And Joey, this is why it's kind of so cool of what's happening with Damage right now, because you have these dudes that they've been playing the game so long and were so good a while ago, but it was like 9.5 years before you guys won a tournament. And then now you guys are back in the mix with, 2 wins, some second places. I mean, it's like, and again, who gives a shit about that 10th place? Who cares, dude? It's like, and this is kind of, maybe we could transition into a couple of these other conversations. Cause again, the three of us could, we could be talking about this for hours, but like look at Houston Heat, right? I mean, Houston Heat is a team that has a lot of talent, and it's been a while since they've won a tournament now, but they are super consistent because they're always there on Sunday. It's been forever since Houston hasn't made a Sunday. They took second at the second event, fourth at this event, sixth at the first event. I mean, they're in the hunt, but that's how hard it is at the top to get these victories. So maybe, Joe, you could speak to that a little bit, because I do want to talk about the Hurricanes and I do want to talk about New York Extreme before we sign off, because those are 2 huge stories in the sport right now, with the trajectory of those rosters and their results.
So with Houston Heat, the one thing I will say about Houston Heat is they're probably the most consistent team in paintball outside of Dynasty right now. Houston Heat took 3rd or 4th at the first event, but they lost to us. Houston Heat took 4th at this one, but they lost to us. So they're not losing to just anybody. They're losing to the team that's actually moving on to play in the finals or win the finals. And
by 1 point.
This event, honestly, this event, to win an event, you have to have a shit ton of skill and a shit ton of luck. We got lucky on this one. Unfortunately, Chad George tweaked his knee the match before we played them. So he didn't play against us. And that is a huge, huge benefit to us. And I recognize that, right? I recognize that we beat them by 1 point. I mean, we were in control of the match even up to that 1 point when we gave the 1 point up to him. But if Chad George is out there, who knows? That's a whole different match. He was playing ridiculously good. I mean, I scouted the shit out of him the whole time too. He was a difference maker. Not to put a knock on Ryan getting in there and doing what he did. He did a great job with what he had. But I'm confident Ryan didn't play but maybe 4 or 5 points in that snake at practice. Guaranteed Ryan wasn't seeing that
Connor
snake.
Kelly.
Right. Still, even with that, so Connor, yes, he's still going to play the snake, but you're going to have that second guy. That snake was a 2 or 3 person snake. So Ryan was there on the first guy, and I understand Todd's thought process on that too. You put Ryan in there, he goes through, clears it out, and then Connor comes in. He's played it a lot more. He knows all the shots. He can play the strategic smart part of it, and go out and get all the kills, whatever. I get that. So, but them not having Chad is huge, and I recognize that, right? If Chad's out there, did we win that match? Who knows? I mean, I'm glad he wasn't out there, so we were able to win that match. But I think they've had a series of unfortunate events happen to them at all these events, and that's why. I don't think it's a lack of talent or a lack of ability or a lack of coaching or a lack of anything. I think that team has the ability and can win any of these events. Like, they're the one team that you don't really want to have to play until the semifinals or finals.
Yeah, they're super close, man. I don't think it's going to shock anyone if Houston Heat rolls up and wins the next event. They're just so close. But Rusty. I mean, obviously, Todd really well throughout the years, and you're really familiar with that squad as well too. But it is one of those kind of quandaries right now with Houston Heat, because, and again, we're splitting hairs here. We're talking about the fine line of excellence and elite performance, because Houston Heat is an elite team. It's a team that has won in the past couple of years. They've made every Sunday for, I want to say, almost a half decade, it seems like. And they're losing these games on Sunday deep into Sunday by 1 point. So it's super close, but they haven't had Mishka a little bit. So getting Fedorov and Mishka there, they had them Mishka came back for this last one. Chad is getting a little long in the tooth. So sometimes he gets, that dude's been diving into the snake one for 15 years now. So it's just hard to do that at that level and stay resilient for, as long as he's been doing it. What are your thoughts on Houston Heat? What is it going to take Houston Heat to get over the hump? Just a little bit of luck? Do you think they need to pick anybody up? What do you think they need?
In my opinion, I said it at the event before, that they need to lean on Moorhead more. I think he's underutilized, in my opinion. He plays well. He can play either side of the field. It's just sometimes, like in the tournament, they were playing Dynasty at the second event. Moorhead's getting down the Dorito side. Then he went through and he got caught making a move. And then they bring on a cold Fedorov who just camps in the back Dorito because he hasn't been playing. And now Dynasty has their way on that side. So to me, I think they need to utilize him more. So in the situation you lose Chad, you have a Moorhead who's gotten plenty of reps and knows how to play it. Whereas you had just Chad the whole time and he gets hurt. So to me, I think the most underutilized player on that team is Moorhead. He's aggressive. He shoots people. He plays pretty intelligent in the games. So I think they should use him more. That's my opinion.
Joey, not to give your enemies any bit of, actionable criticism where they could get better. But, I mean, what are your overall thoughts on Houston Heat? I mean, that is an enemy of yours. It's a team you have to get through in order to, however fate shakes it out. What do you think? If you want to share. If you don't want to share, I understand, because I'm sure you're not trying to make Houston Heat better.
There's nothing I'm going to say that Todd probably hasn't already had go through his mind. Todd's a very, very, very intelligent coach. So I'm confident that anything I'm going to say, he's already thought about, and there's probably a reason why he's not doing it that I don't know. But yeah, I agree with Rusty. I think when you have a player of Ryan's caliber that can literally play any one spot, any of the ones, he can play up the middle, he can play down the Dorito side, he can play the snake one, and he's proven it over the years. That's the guy at practice that has to play all of those positions. That's the guy at the event when you finally figure out. I mean, it was pretty obvious on this one, but when you figure out the snake is the most powerful part on the field, he has to be getting as many reps as Chad and Connor on the snake side, because there's a good chance at some point in time you need all three of those guys in the snake at one time, where maybe Tyler goes the other way and it's just as the guy who plays the anchor on that side. So I think I agree. I think they need to use Ryan more in more situations where if they're behind, because like you said, Chad he's not injury prone, but he plays a lot of points. You play that many points in that position and you're getting older, you're going to get hurt. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So if you're leaning on him that heavily, I mean, why? There's multiple matches he could have sat Chad and played Ryan over there, and maybe Chad doesn't tweak his knee, and then Chad is available for against us. And then you do play Chad every point against us on Sunday. So I agree. I think that's it. You just got to rotate your guys a little better.
Well, and it's talking about rotating guys, if we could kind of maybe take and steer the conversation to Dynasty, so Dynasty finally drops a tournament. They lose to X Factor by 1 in overtime after beating Impact by 1. They only lost one game, and it was to X Factor. Their plus and minus was a absolutely filthy and incredibly impressive plus 19 points. To put that in perspective, you guys were at a plus 18, Joey. X Factor was at a plus 9. Heat was at a plus 12. New York Extreme was also at a plus 19. So we got a couple more conversations to have before we let everybody go. But the reason why I brought up Dynasty for this specific part of the conversation is that when you talk to SK, we talked to Skinny Kevin Brettauer, the coach of that team, who Rusty took over for you when because you have 5,000 children and you have to be a dad and coach all, you're getting to the point where all your kids are in sports. So you have to, and God bless you for that. I think that's an awesome decision because you've done your time. But, SK has done a really good job of managing his 40-year-olds and his talent and his up and coming talent, because he knows that he can't, when he hears, when I talked to him at the first couple events, especially at this last one, they had played a ton of paintball. And I was like, man, I hear you've been grinding. Most coaches would say, yeah, we care about this. We're trying to get our grind on. We know that's not at all what he said. He's like, yeah, we played way too much. I'm like, what are you guys doing? You guys going to try to get hurt? He understands that he's got guys that are one dive away from tweaking themselves. And it's kind of the concept. And Joey, you're in the exact same situation. Rusty, you're nodding your head because you've been in this situation too. Once the knife is sharpened, okay, once we have a sharp knife, you have to kind of be careful how much material you take off of that knife, because every time you sharpen a knife, you are taking material off of it in order to hone that edge. And that is a pro paintball team, especially with dudes that are in their 30s and now with Dynasty in their early 40s. So it's like that is part of it, right? Rusty, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, I always laugh because I'm like, our average every year just kept going up. It's like we never had a balance of like the next crop of young guys to balance us out. It was like when we picked up Arturo, he was 32, and that was like our young snake guy. So it was always like a joke about the age average. But yeah, you got to manage like, when you have players that are 20 plus years, they know what they're doing. They know how to prepare themselves. So when it comes to practice, you don't need to throw in like 3 more straight practices. Those guys are going to do their own work and take care of themselves and then show up prepared for what is your essential, practices. But I mean, they were oddly, I remember in the last show I said they weren't going to win the tournament, and then I picked Impact to win, and then obviously they got bumped out by Dynasty, but that was just between, I could have picked Heat, I could have picked Damage or Impact. I just feel like they just, for whatever reason, don't win that middle event. I don't know why. It could be various reasons, but even on their best runs, they haven't won that middle event. It dates all the way back to like 2004. So
yeah, we talked to Rusty.
What
do you think that is? Obviously, there's a lot of
I used to think it was the beach, but they don't all live by the beach anymore. So I just thought maybe it was the beach in the summer.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan now lives by the beach. Everyone else has got kids and a lot of stuff going on, so I don't think it's the beach anymore. What do you think it is?
If you look at
let's talk about
they were very fine line of making the finals. I mean, honestly, they like fractions from making the finals. Like when they shot Billy on the break, that took away a lot of X Factor's offense. Then you have Mike you had Archie kind of got caught in that move, like very lucky for X Factor. And then when Urena went, shot a guy and got shot, like all they had to do is just slow roll that side a little bit and control it a little bit. And Dynasty goes on to the finals, hands down. X Factor was in no position in that game to be winning that point. Dynasty was in the position to win. They just got unlucky in a sense. So, I mean, that was and like Joey said, you got to have luck. And that was that they didn't have the luck there in that situation.
Joey, do you think that's what it was? I mean, was it finally their luck ran out? Because to have the run that they had and then now trying to win, 4 events in a row, it's pretty insane. Do you think it was a luck thing?
I would like to think it's just us not letting them get that 4th win, so they can't take that title from us, the 3 win in a row thing, because we stopped them on the last 3 run. We stopped them on this 3 run too. So I'm going to try to put together my own 3 run thing now.
Yeah, but hold on. You didn't actually stop them. They beat you, and then you did not face them on Sunday. So
it's not my fault.
Not like you stopped.
If they could have made the finals, if they would have made the finals, we would have stopped them. They weren't good enough to make it to us, so that's not on me. That's on them. So don't get me wrong.
All right, yeah.
Don't get me wrong. We wanted them.
Now, historically, that's untrue.
Was the game we wanted.
Now, historically, that's untrue. They beat you in the finals several times.
Right. Historically, we should the English.
So I wouldn't say it was a lock. I mean, you played them well in the tournament.
Joey, this is Joey. This is when you say, "What have you done for me lately?" Joey, that's what you should say right now.
No, I don't even need to say what I've done lately. I don't really care about historically. I care about what happened. What happened was we made the finals. They didn't do their job. If they would have done their job, they'd have gotten the smoke too. I mean, we were not going to not win that tournament. Once we got to that position, I was confident. It didn't matter who came out of that match. We were going to win that tournament just the way my guys were playing. I mean, we were playing lights out, and would it have been a good match? I don't know if it could have been better than the match we had with X Factor. That was a really good match. I mean, you went to overtime one-on-ones. Like, what's better than that?
Yeah, but do you think about in your match against X Factor? You went up on them, then they essentially went on a small run, and then they laid up in that last point and let the time run out.
Yep.
They had Billy and Colt coming down the side. They found a formula to beat you.
And a 5-on-4.
Didn't use it. I mean, I'm not nothing against you and your team. They found a formula to win, and then they didn't use it. They laid up on that last point. I was like, why aren't they pushing? Billy's sitting in the temple. He's not moving anymore.
Well, Billy got shot
from
Jason.
Because, look at all the previous points. They were attacking.
Right. Well, they did the same thing we did. We went up by 2. One guy got sweet spotted. So then we choked up. And when we choked up, they came. So then when that point came, we went and it forced them where they couldn't get out of the choke up position anymore. And, it's part of paintball, Rusty. You've been there. You've done it. You know how this shit works. In the heat of the moment, you think you're making the right call. And honestly, I don't even think that from a conversation I had with somebody, I think it may have even been Ryan, that wasn't their game plan. Their game plan wasn't to sit like that. it just happened because we went to positions then that countered what they were doing and stopped them from being able to make their fill outs that they were making, because they were doing the small bump, they were doing the tower and the Aztec, and then Billy was kicking out into the snake. We didn't lose anyone on the break. They didn't lose anyone on the break. We made the fill out. We lost the body, but we were wide at that point, and then they couldn't get wide because we were in all the wide spots. So, but back to the Dynasty thing, though, like without a shadow of a doubt, I think Dynasty is arguably the best team in paintball. Argument could be made that they are the best team in paintball. I'm not going to say they are because I feel that we are, which, you know,
well,
I wouldn't
it's
be doing
you
my
and
job,
Dynasty
and I wouldn't
right
be doing
now.
him if I didn't.
Well, I know, but it literally, like, there's no argument in this. If you look at the past year, it's Dynasty and Damage, because if you and you have to give the nod to Dynasty if you're looking at, you know, record for the past year. But now you guys just won this last tournament and you took second at the first event. So if you take the anomaly of the 10th off and you played Impact in the goddamn wild card round, you know, so that was difficult. And there's a couple more teams I want to get to before we sign off. Impact is one of those conversations, Hurricanes and New York Extreme. We have to talk about those teams before we sign off. So let's kind of get through this Dynasty conversation, but I definitely look, it's Dynasty and Damage, because the second places that you guys have taken and then it is impressive. You guys won Texas last year. Dynasty is unarguably the best team of the past 2.5 years because of the amount of wins they've put up. But if you look at everyone else, okay, the only other team we can even have in the consideration, period, is Impact, because they won 2 in a row last year. But it's since those 2 in a row, it was, you know, World Cup, you know, didn't win. And then this year, 3rd, 8th, and 7th. So that's it. Those are the 3 teams that have won tournaments in the past year. Okay, that's it. So those are the only 3 teams that are at the top tier. It's Impact, it's Damage, and it's Dynasty. That's it. Those are who else is it? Point me to the other wins. There have not been any other wins. Those are the wins. So those are the 3, you know, quote unquote top teams. And then Impact didn't win any events this year, and you guys have, and they haven't taken any second places, and you guys have, so they haven't made the finals. So if we just look at what's actually happening, it's Damage and Dynasty right now. And when you look at what's interesting though is that you guys are still 7 points behind X Factor in the overall series title with the last 2 events to go. Let's discuss X Factor real quick, because we got to get to these other teams and we got to kind of go through them relatively quickly. But, you know, Joey, just give me just real quick thoughts on X Factor, because, you know, obviously with the second place, a 4th, a 5th, and a 2nd. 5th, a 4th, and a 2nd this year. So they're back, and you just played them in the finals, and it went all the way to one-on-ones. I mean, if Tom Guess had won that one-on-one, we'd be having Ryan Brand on the show and singing Tom Guess's praises, but that's not how it went down. You know, so what do you think? Do you think they're ready to win a tournament, or do you think that they're back completely? Like, what do you think?
I think that their trajectory right now is going in the right direction, right? So they basically had, call it what you want, they had a rebuild this year. You lose Rainey, who's arguably top 5 player in the world, and you bring in Cody, and then they go through the shuffle. They lost Archie the year before. So like they've had some pretty big hits to that roster. Arguably their 2 best players they lost. And they're figuring it out, right? Ryan's a great coach. Alex is a great owner. They have great players. They're run properly, right? They're top down. They're a smartly built team. They're very strategic on who they pick up. They have depth in almost every position. So yeah, I think they're on the right track to be that solid top 4 team consistently. So I think that they are on the upswing for sure. And not just based off of that finish, just based off how they've played all the way up to now.
Definitely agree. Rusty, what are your thoughts on X Factor? What do you think they need to do to get back in the winner's circle again?
I mean, I agree with Joey. They're right there in the fight. So it's not like a team you're like, okay, we drew these guys on Sunday. This will be light. You know it's going to be a battle. They have weapons. They have Ryan, who's been doing this a long time at a high level. So he's going to scout you well, and he's going to have plans for you. So, you know, it's going to be a challenge against them. And I think they've done well, like Joey said, getting back to where, you know, you got to win to get back to where you think, okay, like these guys have the, you know what I mean? Like if you take a bunch of finals, you're still like getting overlooked. You got to get in there and win to like really be like, okay, that's like you said, Dynasty, Damage, Impact. Those are the teams that won. So they have the caliber to win. So they're on a fine line and they're on the right path to that. Until they get that win, that's when you say, okay, we're back. We got back to the mountaintop. So I think they're headed up the mountain, but they're not there yet.
So let's talk about New York Extreme. They are the 5th ranked team right now. It's Dynasty, X Factor, Damage, Heat, New York Extreme. New York Extreme's plus or minus points for and against plus 19. There's no other team in the league that's as good as New York Extreme is in the prelims. They have only lost 1 game in 3 events in the prelims. They're murdering everyone in the prelims. At this last event, they won by 4 over Revo. They beat the Breaks Off Aftermath, 7-1 win. They mercy ruled the Saints, and then they beat Impact by 4 in the prelims to go undefeated again. They've lost 1 game in the prelims, and they've gone 4th, 5th, 5th. They have not made it to the finals. And they had no Jerry Caro at this last event. Jerry got in a car accident. We don't know when Jerry's going to be back, but it's been very impressive to see New York Extreme rise to the occasion and have all those guys play the paintball they've played this year. They're starting, I'd say about 6 or 7 is pretty impressive right now. Depth is definitely I'm sure depth is on the tip of everyone's tongue here. Joey, let's start with you. Obviously, you're very familiar with them. You've seen them this year now through 3 events. When you're looking at New York Extreme, what's working for them? What do you think they need?
I think it's just experience. I think they're just lacking in that going deep on Sunday, that feel of being able to. Because Sunday paintball isn't normal paintball, right? Winning in the prelims is great and all, but you could be the prelim all-stars and get your dick kicked on Sunday, and it doesn't matter what you did. You could have a plus 7,027,000, but if you get knocked out every time on the first game, like it doesn't mean anything. Like it means nothing. I'd rather go 2-2 and win the tournament and have a +1 than have a plus 19 and get knocked out on that first round. So I think that what they need more than anything is they need to be able to do the translation from prelims to the Sunday game, because Sunday game isn't the same game as that. And I think they're getting there, and I think they will get there. I just think that it's almost like a whole new language, right? We speak English great. We're not so good at Mandarin, and we're not good at Mandarin because we don't ever practice it. We don't have any experience with it, right? Like they don't know, because this is really the first time they've been able to go deep with any consistency at all. So I think they'll get it, and I think they're putting in the work, and I think they are definitely a team to look out. And I would put them as a and I know whatever the series rankings they are, but real talk, I would say that they're easily number 3. They could be a 4, 5, or 6 all day long on the rankings and on real paintball numbers, in my opinion. So, and that's not a slight, that's a compliment. Like they are a good team that you don't want to run into if you can avoid them. So, I mean, once they figure out the Sunday language, they're going to be scary.
They are absolutely demolishing people, mostly in the prelims. I just would like to state for the record that every single game they've lost on Sunday has been by 1 point. They lost to X Factor in the quarterfinals. X Factor, again, obviously went to the finals. They lost 3-4 game there. If you look at the second event in Texas, they lose to Houston Heat by 1, and then they lose to Dynasty in a 2-1 game at the first event. So they're barely losing on Sunday. They have no blowout losses. No one has been able to blow out New York Extreme, period. Like that has not happened in 2023. They're just like taking the whoop stick like an angry drunk stepfather to everyone in the prelims that they've played, essentially, other than the 1 game they lost. I think it was the Uprising, which was strange. I'd have to double check that, but it's been very impressive. Rusty, what do you think, man? I mean, they seem to be a team on the brink. It's definitely one of the most compelling paintball stories heading in to these last 2 events. And now that we have this 2-month break, they're probably going to get Jerry back. I don't know how messed up he got by that car accident. I know he has some flesh wounds that need to heal, but it's not like anything, cataclysmic that they won't. And he's unarguably their best snake player. And on his best days, he's their best player, just because of the impact that he has when he has big points. What do you think about New York Extreme right now?
It's actually a pretty easy story if you look at it. They got better chemistry. Bottom line, they got rid of Harrison, and now they're more attractive for people to play there. People don't want to play with all that craziness. As funny as like you guys make it with the commentating, like you're actually competing at the tournament, like that's sideshow. So and that's not going to stop because like the way that team was positioned, that was never going to end. Now he's off the team. Now these guys have a different chemistry. Now they're working together. Their pit demeanor's better. Like things are going. Now they're getting a taste of like, oh, this is what it's like to compete without all the nonsense and the sideshow and the other elements that they were trying to dig into. Is like, no, let's focus on these games and win games and compete. And now they have more guys in line with that. That's why they're performing better. Is the factor of chemistry has improved for them, for sure.
Two other teams we have to talk about before we sign off, just because, it's very relevant to the conversation here moving forward in pro paintball. The first one is a team that is now, I wouldn't say they're not overdue for a win, but they're a team that always is going to contend for wins. Edmonton Impact. So the only game that they lost in the prelims was to New York Extreme, but they lost that game by 4. They beat Revo by 2. They beat up on the Saints. That was a 4-0. They completely destroyed Aftermath. At one point in time, Impact went on a 10-0 run where no one could touch them for 10 points. And then they lose that game to New York Extreme. That might have something to do with that loss too. Like maybe we feel like we're untouchable. We scored, we've had 2 shutout wins in a row. We're going to sleep on New York Extreme. And then they go and they lose a 1-point game to Dynasty in the quarterfinals. That was a really fun game. If you guys want to go back and watch that game, that's a good one. Joey, what do you think, man? I mean, Impact it's an all-star only team. If you're not an all-star on the team that you came up with, you do not get a call from Dave Baines in November or December or January saying, hey, and Damage is one of those teams too. Like you're not really, you guys actually you guys take more risks on dudes that are coming up than Impact does by far. And you've had a much more solid core roster for over a decade than they have. Impact is very much, again, an all-star team. Like if you're a badass and you're a dude that's just slaughtering people on an up-and-coming pro team, there's a decent chance that you're going to get a call in the offseason by Dave Baines, and he's going to offer you some money to go play for the all-star team Edmonton Impact. And they've been very successful with this system for years and years and years and years. Again, 2 event wins in a row, and one of them in California was on the back of an all-star pickup that they, guy that was doing really well for other teams throughout the years, who had spent 10 years in the grind, Mike Zupa. He became an MVP for them. But literally, you go down that roster, it's nothing but all-stars cherry-picked and paid money off other teams. That's a great way to do it. And they've been incredibly successful. But right now, as it stands, they're ranked 6th overall. And Joey, we've talked about this before. Rusty, you and I talked about this when we were playing together for years, and we've been, friends since, you were a teenager in, Southern California. But if the way that we look at this, if you're not winning, then you're losing. It's a sports cliche at an elite level. But the 3rd, the 8th, and the 7th that Impact has taken is that's a huge disappointment for that roster, for that team. If you're not in the finals at every event, it's a failure. If you're not winning an event a year, it's a failure for a team of that caliber with all-stars that they have. What do you guys think? Who wants to go first?
Sure, I can go. A great team breaks down to like 5 components that I feel: talent, passion, experience, money, and chemistry. So really, it's just you're getting beat in those. Maybe you're good in all those, but Damage has a little bit more in each one of those. Dynasty has a little bit more in each one of those. So then you look and say, like, which one of these can we add to match or outweigh offsetting factors? Like some teams might not have money, but like we have more passion and we have more, now we just need experience or whatever. So really those 5 factors, and I wouldn't say that they're lacking in any one of them. I just say that Damage and Dynasty have more right now. So I feel like that's a factor. I mean, they all have experience, but it's just, you have to break it down from there, which one is lacking compared to the other teams. And it could be chemistry because they've had an interchange of players. They lost Mouse, who was on the team as a staple player. So you bring in the small fry from France. You have Dalton that you just brought on. Axel got in from the Tauntauns. Like, you just brought in new weapons on the front. Like, those guys got to sync up with all the guys behind them, and that takes. So it's probably a chemistry issue at this point, fine tuning.
Well, and again, they were good at the midway to end part of last season with the 2 wins that they had. This is another team that we have to discuss the results on Sunday for them. Again, the Impact sitting at 6th overall, a 3rd, an 8th, and a 7th. Just like New York Extreme, every single game that Impact has lost on Sunday, every game has been by 1 point. No one's blowing Impact out. And that's not a surprise, but they also have lost Dalton, who is their big money guy in the offseason, Dynasty's MVP from World Cup of 2022. And unfortunately for them, now they take that loss on the D side with Dalton. Now they obviously have Brandon Cornell, who's getting an all-star, phenomenal, one of the best. They got JC. They've been throwing him all over the place. JC has been very versatile for them. But Joey, what are your thoughts on Impact? I mean, this is a team that intimately. This is a team that you have scouted for years, for over a decade. You have watched probably every point that they've played in the deep rounds, and every single guy on that team. And I know you're not trying to give away the secrets and being like, hey, Dave, here's exactly what I think I need what you guys need to do to make this better for you. But they're close, right? Because in another universe,
I think
they could have.
I think this is like the Heat thing, Matty. Dave knows what he needs to have happen and what needs to happen for that team to get over the hump. And it's not something that Dave can fix, or Dave would fix it, right? I think Rusty hit on it. I think the chemistry is a big part of it. When you lose Justin and Mouse, who for 10 years were 2 of the starting 5 on that team, like, they were the guys that were catapulting the wins. Don't get me wrong. A lot of other people contributed and a lot of other people had their moments, but those were that's your Jason and your Jacob. That's your Ryan and your Marcelo, right? Those were the 2 main guys on that squad. When Sunday came around, guaranteed you were going to have those 2 guys on the field with 3 other dudes. Now, are those guys the same guys as they were? That's an argument I don't need to have. Not having those guys on your team, though, and that being a big part of your chemistry, especially on Sunday, you got to find out who's your J-Reb and who's your Mouse now. At the one event, it was Zupa. Is Zupa that guy? Can Zupa be a Mouse consistently? So far, no. And that's not a knock against him. There's only one Mouse in paintball, right? Like, you're going to have to find out who those guys are. Is Axel going to be that guy? He has moments where he looks like he's that guy. Zupa has moments where he looks like he's that guy. But I think until Dave finds the combination right, this is the way I look at all of this. This is the way, and Rusty will get this, and he'll agree with me 100% on this. So it doesn't matter how good the ingredients are. If you take Wagyu beef and you mix it with cat food, it's going to taste like shit, right? Mm-hmm. So as the chef, aka the coach, you have to figure out what ingredients you're putting together to make the perfect dish, right? So
at what Dave proportion? At what proportion?
Right.
Too.
Dave has a lot of really, 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 really good pieces of meat. He has really, really, really high end shit. But if it's not cooked right, it doesn't matter. If you take Wagyu beef and you well done it, it's going to be beef jerky. It doesn't matter. It's not going to taste like Wagyu, right? So he has to figure out how to take these new ingredients that he's never cooked with before and make a perfect dish. So he's in the prelims, it's easy to make something that's presentable and people are like, oh, that's yummy, and you can get through. When you get to Sunday, you have to have a perfect dish. And I think that will come with more time. Bart being the owner he is, Dave being the manager and coach that he is, I think they understand that. Now, when you lose someone like Dalton, who is your main course now, he's the guy that you're anchoring everything on, right? When you lose him, now you have to figure it out all over again. So the momentum they made getting up to that point, to lose him, it's going to be a whole nother thing for them to figure out again. And they're starting to work on it. And that's the truth. That's what they're going to, it's just going to take time. That squad could win any tournament if they can figure it out. Can they figure it out? I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah.
So the last team, I know, I totally agree. But we have to mention that Impact has lost all of their Sunday games by 1 point. New York Extreme has lost all their Sunday games by 1 point. That's kind of how close it is. There is a hierarchy emerging here. The last team that I will ask you guys about before we go is the New Orleans Hurricanes, the Nolans Hurricanes, because Mike Bianca has done an absolutely exceptional job of guiding a group of guys with really no superstars. You know, I mean, that if I was looking at poaching, if I'm Dynasty or X Factor or Damage or Heat or, I mean, even Extreme, you know, Bo's got some money, or Diesel, whatever. I mean, it doesn't matter. Any of these, you know, Tom Ford, Charlie Givens, like all the guys that own these teams have some resources. If I'm looking at the Hurricanes and I'm like, who am I going to steal to make them worse and make us better? It's tough to tell because they've just done such a workmanship job, like a blue collar team effort.
Super easy.
Okay. Who would you get
Super
then,
easy.
Joey?
You want to kill that team?
You
take Mike Bianca. Nope.
There you go.
Bianca.
You take
He's
Mike
the best
Bianca.
coach in paintball.
Yeah.
He is by far the best coach in paintball. He's better than me. He's better than SK. And the reason why I judge that and how I judge that is there's no way that you could take myself or SK onto that team and get the same level of performance that he's getting out of those guys. Now, a lot of that comes because he's been with those guys so long, they will literally run through a wall for him. They will do whatever he says. So he's able to do stuff that even I can't get away with. Like I can tell Jacob to do something, and at a certain point, Jacob's going to be like, no, that's dumb. I'm not doing that. Right. Yeah. Where he could tell them, hey, I want you to go to their Dorito on the break, and they're doing it. And they believe it. Not only are they going to do it, but they believe that they're doing it for a reason, and that reason's going to work. Now, to Mike's credit, the shit he has them do, it works. So he's a smart enough guy to be able to take these guys from divisional rankings into the pro rankings and have them be at the level they are. So he's the key. He's the reason why that team's successful. The players have to do their jobs. The players have to be good. No doubt about that. But just like I said with Dave, where Dave has top cut meat only, he's going out there with some chicken wings and some regular old white chicken breast, and he's making that stuff taste like some gourmet ass food. So he is such a good coach that he's making his players beyond their years in the pro ranking. So without a doubt, he's how, if you want to kill that team, you pick that guy up as the coach, and then that team will not be the same team.
Rusty, what are your thoughts?
I agree with what Joey's saying for sure. If you look at all the formulas I talked about earlier, they're just lacking experience. They have all the other pieces. They're overcome, like they don't have the money that other teams have, but they've overcome it with their passion, their talent, and the chemistry obviously is really strong. They're all on the same page. It's not like they have one guy that's a superstar to try and carry them. They're all like, either you pick up Mike or you pick up the whole team. So you just buy their team, keep him to make them better. So it's more just like time and experience. When they get to Sunday, they don't have the experience of like being in that, like you said, speaking the language. They don't speak the language very well yet. Now they're consistently getting there, and they're consistently practicing and learning the language. So they're gonna get there. And you know that I like how they're built. If I was gonna build a team, I would, and had the interest of time, I would build it my way, just like that. This is my philosophy. This is how we're going to do it. If you don't fall in line with that, then you can't be on this team, because this is how I see us getting to the top and being there consistent, being a contender. And everyone has to invest in that. And yeah, it's not going to be easy. You're not going to come out and be like, here's my team just because I am who I am. Like we're going to win. Like, no, it's a long-term thing that you got to build and grind at. But I think they'll get there. I think they're in the right trajectory and they're learning at a good pace.
It is interesting. So when we were talking about New York Extreme and Impact, so Extreme is 5th, Impact is 6th, Hurricanes is 7th. The Hurricanes have dropped their games on Sunday by more than 1 point. If you go back to their first performance this year, they've made all Sunday. Every Sunday they've made this year, they've made 4 out of the past 5. That's incredibly consistent. They did lose by 1 to New York Extreme at the first event. At this last event, they lost to Damage by 2. Still, relatively close game, and so that it's not. But considering where they came from, it's not as close as New York Extreme and Impact right now. They're not as polished on Sunday, and Sunday is a completely different equation than these other, than the conversation we're having in the prelims. But they are very, very impressive. They didn't have 2 of their guys at this last event, and they still were good, so I'll tell you what, man, if you're a sponsor out there and you're looking to pick up a team like that, this is not a team with money. This is not a team. So if you're like a rich dude that wants like a new yacht and you love the game of paintball, maybe you should call Mike Bianca, and leadership of that team and like maybe try to get in because they have an incredibly solid base. This team is very built well for the future. If they have some money, like I like to pick up bring a Nick Ripple over, but it's not like just real quick, Joey, but like they're not paying Nick a bunch of money as one of the best snake players from Europe to come over. That dude is, he's flying over on 15-hour plane flights, spending, barely any time sleeping to make practices. And I mean, that's a team that's done a lot with a little. Joey, what do you got for us?
So to add on to currently their roster, guys being picked up, guys being paid money to have somebody steal from their team. I think the reason why you're not going to see that right now is because they don't speak Mandarin. They don't know how to play Sunday yet. They're learning it, though. They're learning it really fast. They're the kind of team that once they figure it out, that'll be when the real test comes for them and if their team can stay together. Because once they figure it out and you figure out who the Mouse is, you figure out who the Keith Brown is, you figure out who the Jason Edwards is of that team, that'll be when the Barts, the CJs, the Sarges, the Dynasties, the Travises from Infamous, those guys that are willing to throw money at them, that'll be when you see like the real true grit of that team. I feel right now the way that team is, they're not a bunch of young kids. They're a bunch of grown-ass men that they're going to 100% get there. And I don't think it'll be easy to pull any of those guys away from that world. But I feel that Mike Bianca is beyond his years and experience as far as being a coach in paintball. I feel that they're playing beyond their years. And as soon as they figure out Sunday paintball, they're going to be a team you absolutely do not want to run into on Sunday.
To me, it's just such an inspiration because if you look at a lot of these other teams, the fact that they've been able to do it, the way they've done it with, the quintessential blue collar ballers. I mean, these are grown ass men that have regular jobs that dedicate their lives on, as much as they can, given their families and their real life situations to play the game at this level. The fact they've made 4 or 5 Sundays, and yes, they're not ready yet, as evidenced by their performances on Sundays. They can't make it to that next round. But Jesus Christ, if you're talking about an inspiring paintball story, if you're a sponsor out there, if you're any, person that's looking to put money towards a team that wants to inspire other people that are playing divisional paintball to love your brand through the trials and travails of the people that you're allowing to play paintball for free and giving them some coin. Like, dude, the Hurricanes are that team right now. And I couldn't agree more, Joey. I think you're right. I think that it's almost unarguable that, given what he's got, and this is not a knock against the Hurricane players or the talent. Obviously, the talent is great, but the fact that, like, we've just never really seen this before. We've never seen a team full of unknowns come in from nowhere. No one telling me during the divisional ranks, oh yeah, dude, the Hurricanes were beating the brakes off of us. Okay, I'm just saying we got 30 years to work with, so there's a couple different parallels. But recently, with the way that they've done it, I mean, there was, it's not like anyone was like, dude, I hear like the really good players and the really good teams I hear about before I see them, because we cover the best of the best. So if you're making it to the top tier, the divisional ranks, all the way down to like D1000, like I get to see you on that center court a little bit, a couple years before things start cooking off for you and you make a run, right? Like this was not one of those teams necessarily. And no one was like beating my door down like, hey, dude, New Orleans Hurricanes are coming for it. This team is going to be making 4 out of 5 Sundays in 2023 to 2020, 2022, 2023. That's not what happened. So I have to tip my hat in respect to those dudes and what they've accomplished. And yeah, I think Joey, I completely agree with you. I think it's unarguable. Like, yeah, sure. Yes. Again, the team who's winning events right now, it's Tampa Bay Damage, it's San Diego Dynasty, it's Edmonton Impact. Those are the teams that have won the past year and a half. But other than that, as far as just pure impressive performance and the grit that is required to be elite, like, or to get to the point where you could be elite, because they're not elite yet. But Jesus Christ, man, like Mike Bianca and the Hurricanes, every single one of the dudes on that roster have earned all of my respect. And I look forward to see what they have to offer moving forward. All right, so we're going to sign off here soon. Rusty, any last thoughts? Like, what are Rusty, my question to you before we sign off, and we're going to be doing more shows. We got a couple months before to the next event. It's going to be September 15th to the 17th. Obviously, Tampa Bay Damage is on top right now. Got a lot of momentum. Actually, Rusty, before I throw it to you, let me ask you this, Joey, because we've talked about this off camera. What are you guys doing to maintain your edge in this break? Because you guys, if we had if this was, if this was a different event where we're just like a 6 weeks out before the next one, and you can just, kind of that'll go before we blink our eyes. Now you got a decent amount of a break. How are you guys dealing with that? You guys just come off this huge win and looking really good. How are you dealing with this break?
Just keep on grinding. I mean, that's really all you can do. Like we're not doing any formal bring teams in practices or anything like that, but the guys are out there every weekend. If they're not out there playing 1-on-1s and 2-on-2s and 3-on-3s or beating up on some other divisional teams or coaching other divisional teams, like all that stuff, even that's a big part of it. I think a lot of the pros don't do is the coaching the divisional teams. You learn a lot. You learn a lot of how to deal with the coaches and how to deal with your teammates and how to deal with other people that you don't get until you actually get in a position of having to coach a team and realize that, okay, yeah, this guy's going to say something and it might be of some importance, but he needs to shut the fuck up because not everyone needs to hear it. Right. And then you learn how to communicate better with your coaches, with the other teammates. So that kind of stuff, like that goes a long way with these guys and just keep on playing. Right. Like it's 100 degrees out here and these guys are still out there every Saturday, 1-on-1s, 2-on-2s, 3-on-3s, beating up divisional teams, going out and taking the team that Keith's coaching. And 4 of our guys will go out and play against that team to make that team better. So they get better. So Keith gets better. Like it's all part of it. It's just staying after it, right? Staying active in paintball. There's no real break. There's no real off season. Anyone that says there's a real there's an off season for me. There's an off season for you and Rusty, but there's no real off season for these guys that are at the top. You keep playing, you keep grinding, and that's how you keep your edge. It's the only way you keep your edge. You obviously don't go out and do it till you die because you're right. You don't want to grind yourself completely out, but if you're not putting the work in, it shows.
Rusty, any last thoughts before we sign off? Compelling narratives moving forward. 2 more events to go here in the 2023 NXL season. What do you think?
I had a thought on what Joey said about players going to coach, and I just thought, like, times that I've gotten texts that say, "Sorry, man, I'm out coaching a divisional team, so just however I was, sorry." Like they sort of get it, like the stuff you're dealing with, and it's chaotic, and you're trying to like get everything in line all the time in a very fast pace. You're like a minute and a half, and you got to get 5 guys all in line and make adjustments. So once they coach and they do it, they're kind of like, okay, yeah, I probably yelled at you a few more times than I needed to. So it's kind of funny you mentioned that. That is a good experience for players because then they do come back with a different, like, I don't need to be stuffing my finger into the play where no one can see it and making my point at this time. So that is interesting. In terms of the teams, I don't see much changing on most of the heavy hitters we talked about are going to show up good. I think the break only helps very experienced teams because those players are passionate about playing. Otherwise, they wouldn't be playing for 20 years. So they're going to go out and do the things they need to do. And then they'll show up prepared for the, get ready in the practices and get ready for the tournament. So, so far the trend lines, I don't see any emerging like new trend lines. I think we'll just, when we break down the brackets, it'll be who's in what bracket. Some brackets are lighter than others, and we'll go through all that. But, all the top teams are still the top teams right now.
Yeah, to me, it's just at the top end. Is X Factor really ready for it after this second place finish? Are they really going to make a run in the last 2 events? Is Damage going to maintain and be elite this whole way through like they have been for the past year and a half? Is Dynasty going to answer now? Finally, they were not able to make history and win 4 events in a row. And then is Heat ready to win? Is Impact ready to win again? Can New York Extreme step up? What are we going to see out of the Hurricanes? Can Infamous redeem themselves? And then now we're getting into the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th place team. So again, we're going to be breaking this all down as we move forward towards the next event. Again, it's September 15th through the 17th. Looking forward to it. Next NXL event going down. If you guys are free this weekend, definitely check out the live stream going down. Major League Paintball. It's on their YouTube. It's going to be the NXL event in England, and that one's going to be interesting. Rusty, thank you so much. Joey, big congratulations, dude. You've done such a good job with Damage, and 2 wins in now a little bit less than a year and a half, and you guys are a favorite again. Yeah. Maybe it's going to be. Yeah. Maybe is it going to continue to be Damage in Dynasty? Is someone else going to step up? I mean, that's kind of that's the biggest question of all. That is the rivalry right now. And as somebody that has, what's up, Rusty?
I just want to close with congrats, Joey. I know as a coach, you got to savor the moments when it all comes together and everything just ends up right. And I'll hope for a dynasty damage final. That's what I'll hope for.
Maybe we'll see it.
Yeah, we want
at
that.
the event in
we
Chicago.
Want that bad.
Hey, this is all. Hey, Cup's hard to win.
Let's
Chicago
go.
is always hard to win. It's always mid-season. Everyone has no excuses. This is going to be a fun one. So thank you guys so much on behalf of Go Sports. Big shout out to Rusty Glaze. Check out BKI Paintball. Get all the insight from him. Good luck trying to get Joey trying to coach you. Maybe, but Joey's a businessman, so I'm sure you guys could work it out. Check out Social Paintball and stuff the guys are doing down in Florida to help carry the flag down there for tournament paintball. I'm Matty Marshall, and I will see you guys next time.